Tonight, mysterious disappearance. A woman from Chetwynd is missing. Back to school. Students ready to head back to college. And measles update. Northeast BC continues to lead the way. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with a mysterious disappearance. A woman claiming to be assaulted before going missing. Now, Chetwynd RCMP are asking for the public's help in finding Harmony Brown Desjardins. Now, Mounties say Brown Desjardins called police last Thursday. She told officers that she had been assaulted and that she was headed to the local hospital. Police, however, have been able to find her. They believe she may have been in contact with family and friends through social media. Now, Brown Desjardins is being described as an Indigenous female. The 30-year-old stands 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighs 115 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes and is believed to be in either the Chetwynd, Dawson Creek, or Fort St. John area. Anyone with any information on her whereabouts is being asked to contact the Chetwynd RCMP at the number listed at the bottom of your screen. Well, the fall semester is right around the corner for students at Northern Lights College. At the Dawson Creek campus, newcomers have a busy week ahead. Noah Abel with the details on what they can expect in the new year.
The first day of class here at Northern Lights College is less than a week away. For some students, the journey started this week as some moved into student housing. But for others, the journey will start next week with orientation day on Tuesday.
It's amazing because we see them as brand new students, fresh, most likely a little bit nervous, maybe a little scared.
At the Dawson Creek campus, the first day of the fall term is on September 2nd. On orientation day, Webb says her role is to make sure students have the most successful start possible.
So the students come to the college on the first day and they go and they visit their program classrooms, and then we take them for the rest of the day and we share all the different services and supports that NLC offers.
The campus is welcoming 214 domestic students and 45 international students this year. Sydney Feshuk is enrolled in the Art and Science program and is excited to study what she loves here at home.
It feels good. Yeah, it's nice being home and I can be next to my family.
This week, other students have also begun to settle in on campus.
Students are welcome to move in anytime between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. We make sure that there's someone there to greet them.
The first week of class also features this year's Welcome Fest with free food and drinks, games, and more on September 4th. The carnival will showcase a performance from the rodeo team and a beer garden for the first time in years. Members of the community are also invited to visit the school's cafeteria for weekly lunches prepared by students of the cook training program. The school also offers sports drop-ins 5 days a week for students wanting to get active. Webb says it's a busy first month for students, but it's all worth it in the end.
It's amazing to get to see the students from their very first day to the very last day, seeing them settled in. And then also it's very sweet because it's sad to see them go.
Campus staff are reminding students to start applying right now for student housing for the winter semester. Noah Abel, CJDC-TV News, Dawson Creek.
And as the back-to-school countdown continues to tick, BC Emergency Communication Service is saying now is the time to teach kids about when and how to call 911. ECOM is sharing 911 tips for children who use cell phones, including what to expect when their call is answered. The organization says kids will need to know how to stay calm while describing what's happening and where they are. ECOM is also highlighting the importance of not hanging up even if a child dials 911 by accident. In a response to the growing threat of cybercrime, the City of Fort St. John will host the Northern Cyber Defense Conference. The one-day workshop is designed to give individuals and organizations the tools and knowledge needed to defend themselves against cyber attacks and recover from them effectively. The conference will be held on Thursday, October the 23rd at the Pomeroy Hotel and Conference Center, and will feature national cybersecurity experts and first-hand accounts from staff following the City of Fort St. John's cyber incident this past February. The event is open to anyone who wants to learn how to safeguard against cyber threats. You can register for the event on the City of Fort St. John's website. The BC Centre for Disease Control has confirmed 18 new cases of measles across the province, all of which coming from the Northern Health Region. And that brings the total to 171 across the region so far this year. Health officials confirming 8 cases of the measles are currently active in northern BC. The total number of cases across BC this year is now at 223. Health officials say that 88% of cases come from people not vaccinated against the virus. And the BC CDC continues to say that immunization is the best way to fight the measles. Now, with nearly 76% of all cases in the province coming from northern BC this year, we reached out to school districts 59 and 60. We wanted to know what plans were in place and what parents should know to help combat a further spread of the measles. Numerous calls to both school districts have not been returned this week. Every day, 5 people die in BC from toxic drugs. A number of studies confirm that harm reduction works to keep users alive. But still, the efforts repeatedly come under attack. Well, tonight, in part 3 of her series, Penny Daflos looks at what those policies have done for survivors.
The pricey offices of downtown Vancouver show no sign of the toxic drug crisis or addiction because successful careers make it easier to hide.
Kind of living a double life, in the boardroom one morning, working with a client, media training them, or, working with them on a strategy, and then on the downtown east side, later that day.
Rachel Thexton went to treatment several times before the business owner was prescribed Suboxone. The opioid substitute satisfies cravings without the high.
A mixture of that harm reduction with therapy really changed things for me.
Harm reduction is shorthand for policies aimed at illicit drug users consuming an unpredictable stew of chemicals.
People we know who are dying at home alone.
There are clean needles and free Narcan. A few thousand British Columbians are prescribed safer supply drugs that must now be witnessed by a health professional. For those finding their own street drugs, dozens of temporary overdose prevention sites are overseen by health authorities and staffed by peer support workers equipped with the overdose antidote naloxone. A handful have prompted complaints and even lawsuits.
Crime, human feces, just disorder, yelling, people, in distress.
There are also long-term government-run and funded facilities.
We've been really able to kind of evolve the model that we started here at Insight.
Insight was North America's first supervised consumption site in 2003 and brought down overdose rates until fentanyl arrived.
The problem is not just in the downtown east side now, it's in other neighborhoods of Vancouver, other parts of BC, and the crisis around mental health and around addictions also intersects with the crisis around affordability, housing.
Some parents find themselves on opposite sides of the issue after the death of a child.
Why is that the one drug in our system that's supposed to be safe supply?
Representing loss to some and life-saving measures for others.
People have become more afraid of harm reduction.
If Narcan wasn't available, if overdose prevention sites weren't there, and I wasn't safe when I had relapsed those times, my kids wouldn't have a mom.
In light of the public health emergency, many police leaders, healthcare practitioners, and elected officials stand behind policies that keep people alive until they're ready for treatment. In the next installment of this series, we look at a new era of recovery in BC that starts with one phone call. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, now to the mounting pressure on the EB government in the wake of a landmark BC Supreme Court ruling. The decision granting rights and title over a large parcel of land in Richmond to a Vancouver Island First Nation. BC Conservative leader John Roustad says he wants the Supreme Court of Canada to answer a reference question on private property rights that's stemming from the Cowichan tribe's decision. He says there's too much uncertainty about what the case means for private property owners. Roustad says letting the case wind through the BC Court of Appeal and then the Supreme Court of Canada will protract that uncertainty. And he says it'll provide a chilling effect for investors in British Columbia and property owners.
Cowichan court case has left private property rights in limbo in British Columbia. It has created a huge problem for people, whether it's for the retirement, for sale homes, or whether it's for investment. We need clarity.
BC's Attorney General said yesterday, while the province is planning to launch an aggressive appeal to the decision on several grounds, it isn't the right time to seek a reference, as that could muddy the waters. The federal government says it is carefully reviewing the decision to assess its implication and determine how best to move forward. Some neighbors living near an ostrich farm in the West Kootenay say they're living in turmoil. The story has attracted international attention, but some nearby farmers say they worry their livestock could be at risk. In December, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency issued a call order. It came after the birds at the Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood tested positive for the avian flu. A few dozen of the animals died, but nearly 400 of them survived. Since then, the owners have fought to save the birds, claiming they are not sick. Well, last week, the farm lost its federal court appeal. Neighbors say they've had very little support from elected officials. They've reached out to the local Conservative MP, Scott Anderson, but feel he's not on their side.
Our community, the voice of the people that put him in Ottawa. And I think he's either blind to that or he doesn't care.
Now, the Member of Parliament says he has heard those who support the CFIA's claim and from others who hold personal animosity towards the farm owners. Anderson says he rejects the personal attacks, not because they have or don't have merit, but because they aren't relative to the cull. Finding a place to charge your electric car is about to get a little bit easier in British Columbia. Ottawa announcing plans to fund 480 new charging stations across the province. It comes at a time, though, when EV sales are actually dropping. Government pauses to rebates have them doing a disappearing act when it comes to sales, but that's not stopping the feds from announcing a plan to spend $22 million building the new charging ports.
The most recent data was announced last week by StatsCan. For the month of June in British Columbia, about 13.2% of all new vehicle sales were electric. That's about half of what that mandate for the 26 model year says it's supposed to be. And the numbers have been dropping ever since last year.
The government's announcement comes after a poll commissioned by a resource industry advocacy group found 56% of all Canadians oppose mandates on electric vehicle sales. The province of Alberta is moving ahead with changes to its electricity market, with demand expected to soar. The Alberta Electric System Operator says the restructured energy market will make the provincial grid more reliable and affordable for Albertans. The plan also seeks to attract more private projects to Alberta's grid. Among the major changes, a new pricing scheme. Electricity costs will vary by location based on demand. It'll also incentivize generators to ramp up supply when the demand is high. The new market design will be implemented by mid-2027. Canada Post is urging the union to revisit its offer. The Crown Corporation saying tonight a substantial gap remains between the two sides. In the latest round of contract talks, Canada Post says the union has hardened its position on many items and even added new demands. Well, 55,000 postal workers rejected an offer by the Crown Company earlier this year. Canada Post says it wants the union to, quote, align with the realities confronting the company, unquote. Canada Post recently reported a before-tax loss of $407 million in the second quarter of this year. Stats Canada suggests that close to 40% of all Canadian businesses plan to pass tariff-related costs onto consumers over the next year. Canadian businesses continue to look for ways to survive in the face of U.S. tariffs and counter-tariffs. StatsCan said in a release that despite increasing costs, these businesses maintain a positive outlook this quarter. The survey also found that more than half of all businesses expect to be able to operate for the next year or beyond if tariffs and counter-tariffs remain. Canada, along with all other NATO members, are projected to finally meet the 2% spending goal of their overall economic output on defense this year. Just 3, however, of the NATO members nations will meet the 3.5% of GDP spending increase that was agreed to in June. The push for higher spending is in part a result of Russia's war in Ukraine. It's also the result of increased pressure from United States President Donald Trump, who has accused Canada and European allies of not contributing enough to their own security. Well, it's being called one of the biggest and deadliest attacks on Ukraine since the Russian invasion began. The Russians unleashing a massive drone and missile attack on Kyiv overnight, killing at least 16 people and injuring dozens more. The first direct attack on the Ukrainian capital in weeks. This CCTV footage captured one of the explosions from the attack that targeted at least 7 districts across Kyiv. British Council and European Union offices were among the buildings hit during the attacks, and there are now reports the Russian ambassador to the United Kingdom will be summoned by the British Foreign Office over the attacks. Rescue crews picked through the rubble searching for survivors. Among those killed, at least 4 children between the ages of 2 and 17. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia launched close to 600 drones and at least 31 missiles in the attack. The strike comes amid a flurry of diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back with weather after the break.